I know every single detail. I know your skin. I know your skin. The way you mumble when you're sleeping, and how we share everything. Same friends, same city, same end, same party, same drinks, same bar. But we never felt so far apart. Same you, same me, exchanging words, no meaning. Same hearts, change feelings. Oh, oh, oh. We used to be in love. We used to be inseparable. Now it's a little awkward. It's like we never met before. It's almost like we're strangers. Remember when we had it all? We used to dream big, but now it's just small talk. Ooh, yeah. Oh, oh, ooh, yeah. Oh, oh, ooh, yeah. Oh, oh, ooh, yeah. It's just small talk. Ooh, yeah. Oh, oh, ooh, yeah. Oh, oh, ooh, yeah. It's just small talk. How you doing? It's good to see you. Yeah, I'm good. How you been? Put our heads down and keep on walking. Now it don't mean a thing. Oh, same friends, same city, same end, same pie, same drinks, same bar. But we never felt so far apart. You sing me, exchanging words, no meaning. Same hearts, change feelings. Oh, oh, oh. We used to be in love. We used to be inseparable. Now it's a little awkward. It's like we never met before. It's almost like we're strangers. Remember when we had it all? We used to dream big, but now it's just small talk.
Yes, hello. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome once again to another episode of the P.W.P sessions. That's the Poets with Purpose Sessions podcast. I'm your host, Noelle A. Figueroa, aka the Poet, aka the Anointed Pen. I'm excited and honored tonight to be conducting episode 10. And my guest for this evening is yet another phenomenal poet in their own right, who I've known for several years, by the name of Pam Osbey, aka Mocha Sistah, and I'm very excited for the opportunity to have this interview. Now, we're just going to go through the PowerPoint before we get started. Now, for those that are not familiar with this podcast, the P.W.P sessions is where I will be conducting interviews with new or established authors of poetry and featuring a performance of their work along with an audience Q&A session. I am your host, Noelle A. Figueroa. I am a poet, author, blogger, workshop facilitator, and event host, and I am the creator of the P.W.P sessions. Now, before I dive into this episode's interview, I'm just going to read a brief bio of tonight's guest, Pam Osbey, aka Mocha Sistah. Mocha Sistah is the author of Musings of a Mocha Sister, Tears of a Woman, and Liquid Kisses. She was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and currently lives in North Jersey, New Jersey. After teaching for several years in Chicago, she relocated on the East Coast and earned her master's degree in disability studies from CUNY School of Professional Studies. She is a writer, singer, and podcast personality, currently hosting shows on Anchor FM and Spotify. She is the recipient of the 2004 Gwendolyn Brooks Poetry Award in Literacy from the Poetry Center of Chicago and will be releasing her next collection of poetry in summer 2021. Now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'd like to introduce to some and present to others Miss Pam Osbey. Hey, Pam, how are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, awesome.
Awesome.
Hello,
Excellent.
everyone, and good evening. Thank you for having me here on Poets with Purpose.
Yes. Glad to have you on the podcast tonight, Pam. Thank you so much for being my guest. I'm excited about this conversation.
Awesome.
So as with previous guests, I'm going to pose the introductory question to you like I did with them. Now, when the question posed is, who is Pam Osbey? What would be your response to that question?
That's a loaded question when it comes to Pam Osby. I am a little bit of this and that. I'm a Renaissance woman, writer, singer, poet, but at the heart of me, I am a person who lives in the purpose that God has given me. So, whatever, I'm a temple that fulfills the gifts that God gave me to bless others with. So that encompasses a lot. It could be me working as a writer, as an empowering personality, but also it's just like pouring love where I go. Hate to be so poetic about that, but I like to like kind of think of myself as a vessel that's being used in a positive manner, and I think that's just the way I was raised. So yes, I am a writer, I'm a singer, I'm a community advocate. I've done a lot of community work, and it's probably reflected a lot in the work that people hear. And love is a common theme in what I do. So I think I try to work in love and grace. I'm not perfect. Disclaimer, I'm a human being, but for the most part, I try to work within that. So
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, yeah. So it's safe to say that you're more or less, you would consider yourself to be multifaceted, right? There's not just one side to Pam Osby. There's like
yeah,
different.
there's not one side. There's so many sides to me. I mean, if I look at where I was like 20 years ago, completely different writer, completely different mentality, and where I'm at now is completely different. Like no longer younger, but much more wiser,
Right.
and a lot more confident. Because I think at the beginning of my writing experiences, I definitely was not a confident person because I didn't know who I was. I was just like still figuring out who Pam Osby was then. So what I have evolved to now is like being comfortable, being confident, knowing what I need to do, and being focused on my goals and things of that nature. So
Excellent, excellent. And that leads me to my next question. What was your defining moment or inspiration or event that motivated you to start writing for poetry for yourself?
I think it was a selfish reason because honestly, I grew up not like the Mocha Sistah people see. I had a lot of defining moments as a young person, growing up without a father, dealing with abandonment issues. If anyone is a woman or a guy who grew up without a central parent in their life, whether it was the parents' fault or not, nobody's talking about that.
Right.
It is a defining moment because you have to figure out, did they leave because they love me? Did they leave or is something wrong with me? So I think when I first started to write, I was writing a lot of introspective poetry that were personal. I wrote a lot of personal poetry. I still write personal poetry, but not like that. And I think I had to go through the phase of writing poetry as a catharsis and healing tool to kind of process things and kind of like figure out some things and then set it aside and say, okay, I wrote that, I'm good.
Right,
you
right.
know, you know, and I don't think I didn't publish any of those poems at all. Like I literally was like 18 when I started writing poetry right after high school. And I think that was a good 10 years because I didn't have, my father in my life during that time period. And I was still going on in my life and doing okay things. But I think that process of me going through that, by the time I hit my first book being published, I was 28 when I published my first book. Um, a whole 10 years went by and I wrote and I didn't read no poetry until I was like basically 27, 28 when I was drugged to to the coffee house. My girlfriend put my name on the list. I was upset about it because I was like, I'm not ready to read poetry. But she was like, you wrote enough. It's time for you to get up here. I'm like, oh, Oh, and I had to read at a historic Chicago spot where that poetry movie was over there, with the good peoples over there.
Wait a minute.
So,
Are you telling me that you read poetry for the very first time in the same poetry spot that Love Jones was filmed in? That same
yes.
spot? OMG.
Yeah, that same spot.
Wow.
And I was super nervous because I was super new, and I'm in the spot with like Malik Youssef and Reggie Gibson and Tara Betts, them people, okay, Jay Ivy, people, them big people names.
Wow.
And I'm just a little one that been writing for forever by herself and processing things.
Wow.
Every now and again I would get my poetry. But my best friend at the time, she was like, no, we're gonna go to the spot. And she didn't tell me she was putting my name on the list. I was like the last poet, by the way, because you know how controversial it gets with the list. We ain't gonna go into that on here, but
right.
The list gets crazy, and I was like the last person to read, and I was super nervous, but they were really nice. Everybody was super, super dope. And so that's where I read. I cut my first tooth over there. So yeah.
Wow. That is epic. That is so epic.
Yeah.
That's awesome that you had that opportunity. Now, being that was your start, what would you say were the first subjects that you started writing about and sharing about?
Love and sensuality. Because it's funny because where I'm at now and where I was then is two different things. At the time, I was writing a lot of romance, sensual, those type of romance poems and love poems, borderline lust poems, but with a little class, because my name was not Mocha Sistah, and this is not my first poetry name. My name was Sensuality at the time. I dropped that like many moons ago, but yeah, I was Sensuality back then. And that was funny because it was just like love poems, because I was in a relationship and talk about romance and all that good stuff. So yeah, I was writing a lot of those type of poems until I started to work in schools, and that kind of changed everything that I wrote. Started working with kids and looking at community stuff, and then that was completely different. So, but yeah, the first poems were all pretty in the central realm, and I was always the last poet to go on. Who knows why?
Right. What would you say? We all have our own reasons or motivations for wanting to write poetry. What would you say your motivation is for writing poetry?
To really empower and share positivity, and also have poetry be the backdrop of real life discussions, whether it's talking about what's going on in the community, relationships, church, whatever. Like, let's have I look at poetry, my poetic form, as creating a safe space for people to process and experience their emotions in a safe place. Because I usually try to write without like a lot of judgments, and I just ask questions or I just mention things, and sometimes I flip things, and people might think it's about one thing at the beginning of the poem and something else, but really about us having that dialogue, because we don't have dialogues these days. We just kind of bark orders at each other if we don't agree. And it's, creating that idea that we could be actively listening and actively processing maybe somebody else's voice, and also as a poet using the form as the voice for those who are voiceless. There are individuals who are among us that won't speak, can't speak, are afraid to speak their truth. And I try to use my poetry for that in an authentic way.
That's awesome, awesome. And I think that should be the goal, or at least the motivating factor to, to want to use our writing, for the greater good, as far as like being an inspiration is concerned. I think, as poets, as writers, we would want to have a positive impact in some way, shape, or form, with our creativity. What would you say, like, from the time you started writing poetry up until the present time, like, who or what would you give credit to as to, helping you develop your skills as an author and as a poet?
Oh, it's so many, but just thinking Gwendolyn Brooks, Maya Angelou, Nikki Giovanni, who I've seen several times live, in Chicago. I was very blessed to be able to see her at the Chicago
That is,
Library, and you
wow.
know, and being able to see Sonia Sanchez perform in Chicago again as a former teaching artist. I used to get like invitations and stuff. I just show up,
Right,
or if I see it's a library event, show up. So
right, right. That's awesome.
and
Excellent.
also Langston Hughes, because I use Langston Hughes a lot in my teaching with young people. When I was a teaching artist, I taught for 8 years at the Chicago public school system. I worked with Park District and all that, and I used a lot of poetry from that, but also looking at non-traditional writers. There are a lot of great writers that might be in an anthology book that's not well known. Their name is not big. I used to use all kinds of poetry in my classes and just introduce different writers, including young writers that are 8 years old, or children writers. Hey, you could get inspiration from anything, and it's not just about a big name. I mean, big names get the recognition, but the emerging writer or the brand new writer who no one has ever heard, they still have a piece of the voice in this thing called writing. And I would always just try to read all kinds of different things and just, expose myself to different writing forms and different ways to do poetry. I mean, because I feel like you get stagnant over years. This is my 20th year, since my
Wow.
first book was dropped. And so
Congratulations. That's epic.
thank
So
you.
epic. Wow.
Hey,
Awesome. Yes. Let's celebrate 20 years. I mean, my God,
20 years. Look,
how
look,
many,
20 years since this
wow,
was published. This book
wow,
was 20 years ago, when
wow.
I was basically working on a slide. I would write poetry at my desk as an admin assistant. But hey, when you hanging out and you at work and you got 8 managers, and in between all the barking and the orders and travel arrangements or whatever I was doing at the time, I was writing
Yeah,
my manuscript and
right,
sliding it to my friends and saying, girl, read this, let me know what you think.
right, right.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
It's just amazing that I just wrote the book and I made it a big book because I said I'm not going to ever publish again.
Hmm.
You don't know what's going to happen when you release a book,
Right,
so
exactly. Now, getting like to, as far as your published books are concerned, are all of your books self-published?
absolutely, absolutely. In the
Wow.
beginning I tried, the traditional route of trying to get my name out there and these big old publications. It just didn't happen. And you know you have to figure out what is going to work for you. And are you going to get upset and let people tell you no? No, I create my own path as a writer. And
Exactly.
after a while, after being in those coffee houses with these great writers, great artists, people start doing books, Malik Yousef, and all these people was doing projects. And I was like, if they could do that project, maybe I could do a project.
Mhm.
Just
Right.
saying.
Exactly.
So, I decided I wasn't going to wait anymore, because it's very depressing when you get those rejection letters. If you've ever been a writer and you have sent your stuff out and you don't get in the anthology or whatever, you get tired. And I said, you know what? can't nobody tell me I can't do my own poetry book. And then people will come if they want to hear what you have to say, they will support you. So
Mhm.
I've always gotten support for my projects. And like I said, I like to have ownership of my stuff as well. Yes, it's nice to be published by, whatever press is out there, but it's like a lot of rules and regulations when it comes to that too.
Right.
You could come up with your book title. You could have control over your title. I'm a former author's rep. I used to work with Outskirts Press as a author's rep, meaning I would take an author, you come to us, and I look at your manuscript. I'm helping you develop your book, your front covers and editing and your back cover and production of your book. So as I did that process, I did it on purpose because I was nosy. I wanted to see how I can learn those skills and transpose it to my own thing. And
Right.
that's what I did. So, and self-publishing is not for the faint. You do have to do a lot of work. You do need to have a good, um, need to have some real resources in your crew of people. You need to
Mhm.
have an editor, you need to have a line editor, you need to have someone that can develop and do your book cover, your book cover design. You
Right.
need you need not to just be, because the first couple of projects I did on my own, I was like, yeah, it's good. But if you do not have that editing done by someone else other than you, yeah, it might look good, but you're gonna have errors in there. Let's be honest. I know my
Exactly.
first book had a lot of errors because I didn't, at that time, this book was published for $99, $99.
Wow.
And I didn't really do like the traditional thing that I do with my other projects, which is like really take time. I think I wrote the manuscript in like less than a year. And then I was like, man, let me just put it out there and see if people like it.
Right.
So, with that aspect of it, do make sure that you have your everything in a duck, Library of Congress, your ISBN number, all that self-publishing stuff. All this stuff is out here on the internet. Go get a couple books, go to the library, and educate yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now, how many books in total have you completed?
Technically, 13, and it's crazy, but I
Wow.
have most of my books. I have most of my books with me.
Wow.
And so I got 3 novels, which a lot of people probably don't know that I wrote novels. I
Hmm.
wrote novels when nobody thought I was writing novels, but
Right.
one of my first novels was called Cause I Can. It was about an 18-year-old girl named Joey. She thought she was the bomb and she got in trouble. All kinds of drama happened. And teens, they just living their life because they can.
Right.
So, and then I have a book that I created, um that is a horror flick. Is like the vampire genre. Okay.
Right.
And then I have a follow-up to Cause I Can, called When Rainbows Aren't Enough. So I did 3 novels, and the rest of the projects are all poetry. I did Musings of a Mocha Sister 1, 2, and 3. um Tears of a Woman, Rivers of Life. Oh my God. Erodices, Psalms of Love, etc. I have a long collection of books. A lot of my books were split between me. Either my first book was done on iUniverse.
Mhm.
And back in those days, that's before Creative Space. This is
Right.
like everybody, nobody knew about digital publishing at the time that I published. We're talking about early,
Right.
2001.
Right. Right. That's when it
You
was just
spend
starting to hit the ground running as far
It
as
was just
self-publishing.
starting.
It was
Nobody
new
was
buzz.
doing it.
Yeah.
And when I told them I was doing it, people were like, "Well, you're doing a book. You must got some money." I was like, "I ain't got no money, but I'm gonna do a book."
Right.
I
Right.
do not suggest that you do a project without having a budget. Okay. Even though I did it in the what I call the grimy literary dirty days of publishing.
Right.
But at that time, I just was eager to get it out. I really wanted to get it out, and I did.
Mm.
And no. typically, I would say it's probably best for you to self-publish. I'm just an advocate of that because I got contacted, what was it, a couple weeks ago, and an organization was like, "Oh yeah, we can publish you thousands of dollars." And let me tell you what you can do. You can say bye-bye because I'm not doing that. I will rather go to Ingram Spark, get my ISBN number again from the Library of Congress,
Right.
put it under my publishing house, and just I'll roll that way because if you're gonna ask me for more than the money they was asking for was like thousands of dollars. I was like, you're crazy.
Yeah,
No.
that's ridiculous.
And they're not offering you any package deals either. I mean, I think Outskirts Press still does some kind of packages, but it's best if you could do Creative Space or some other publishing way for you to do it.
Right.
Even Lulu is okay for you to get like a draft of your book and see what it looks like and do a small project there. Um, but for me, it was the best thing that I ever did was like put myself out there and see if I have an audience. A lot of people are afraid to do it. They may think that nobody's gonna buy the book. Hey, if your book ends up at the dollar store one day, somebody gonna read it. I know I have a different way of looking at it, but you gotta start somewhere. And not everybody's meant for your poetry, your writing. Everybody has a different audience that will follow them. So once you put it out
Exactly.
there, they're looking and they're expecting something else, and they will come.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that leads me to my next question because, okay, first of all, congratulations. Not everybody can say that they've written for 20 years and then they got 13 books. Okay, so I salute
Because I was
I
crazy.
totally salute you. No, seriously, that's an awesome achievement, and nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can take away that experience from you, and that is an excellent achievement. And
Thank you.
and you've mentioned all the important things like when you choose to do self-publishing. Yes, make sure you have an editor. Make sure you deal with the right publisher. Make sure you copyright your material. You mentioned all of those important things, and I totally agree with, because for those that don't know, I am self-published myself. So I
Right.
understand the need of, connecting with the right people to make sure you have all the important things in place so you can have a professional looking project, out the door, no question. But with that being said, you know, 20 years, 13 books, based on, your experiences, overall self-publishing, how would you describe your experience as a self-published author, overall? How has the experience felt for you and been for you?
I mean, it's a little bit of everything because I as a self-published author, back in the days when you were trying to get your books in the brick and mortar stores was really hard. I did get my book in a couple of stores. I got burned by some consignment deals. Ooh wee. Back in the day, I mean, I went down to a certain city and it was a black bookstore. I ain't gonna say the name, I ain't gonna say the city, but it was very disappointing, because I went as a part of a group of writers, and then I arranged for my crew to have their books sold in the store,
Right.
and we did not get paid, and it was crazy. Um, so I had that experience. I also had some interesting experiences as a publisher, working with people. What I found out is this: if you're gonna go and you want to publish your book, and you'll ask somebody to publish your book, this is just me speaking as a publisher. Trust the people. If you went to there and they're the professional, trust them to do the work that you're asking them to do. But
Right.
understand this: you must market your book, whether you're under Simon and Schuster or a small publisher. Just just a general statement,
Right. Exactly.
because people feel like they can come to you, get the book done, and don't have no marketing plan. You need to have a marketing plan. You need to get that out. But in
Right.
terms of the book signings, I had fun. I did book signings. I went on the road. I met people like you. I met all kinds of people when I was at different literary events. Um,
Right.
I believe I went to more than 20 cities in a very short period of time as I was publishing those books before I moved to the East Coast.
Wow.
Um, and one of the coolest experiences I had, and I can say this, is I went on Zane's literary cruise back in the early 2000s. Me and my girlfriend, we were writers on her cruise. I was the only poet, and I did perform poetry in front of Zane. Nobody else
Wow.
can say that.
Wow.
Nobody else but me. But
Excellent. Excellent. That is excellent.
I've been very fortunate. Like I said, I know I got like the Lord, man. He's on me because I mean, between that and me getting the 2004 Gwendolyn Brooks Poetry Award back in 2004, I was barely 1 year into teaching, maybe 1 or 2 years teaching poetry at that point. I definitely did not think I was going to get an award for just going up to a classroom and being Pam. Like literally what you see here is if I go into class, I had the kids with the pen saying, I'm a poet, and you know it. I had a
Right.
whole thing going on when I went to my class.
Right.
And I had a blast. And at the end of that year, we have like a poetry party at the end of the year. And they're
Right.
like, we're gonna announce who's gonna win. I'm not thinking my name is gonna be announced, and it came with a check. I was just like, what is
Wow.
going on here?
Excellent.
But I'm very grateful because it happened to you when you're humble and you're not big headed. Because I didn't see that coming. It was a lot of people in the room, and I was one of very few Black poets for this organization. It was like
Right.
a lot of American poets, but not many poets of color. So it was only a few of us, but I
Right.
was one. And all of that happened when I had just released my book. I was like maybe a couple years into like grinding and doing books and teaching and and I would say my self-published journey is probably because of my tenacity of being able to push myself and networking and talking to people and not being shy. You can't be shy about your stuff and not being big
Exactly.
headed.
Right.
It's not being big headed if you have a product and you tell people, hey, this is what I do. And things will open up. I had stuff open up for me. After school programs. I worked with After School Matters. I was able to do the mayor's literary thing in Chicago. I was at this public library. I was getting pulled into projects just because I was a writer.
Wow. That is awesome. That is
But
awesome.
that's only if you tell people that you're a writer, people. Take your card with you. Make sure you have, tell the people what you got going on and document what you got going on. Because I think one of the things that I do at that time, I just had like a brochure of poetry, who I do, what I teach. So
Right.
when I meet people, I don't have time to talk to them real quick. I would just slide them my card, or I slide them like maybe like my credentials, whatever that is at the time. I always had a marketing kit that had one of my books, my business card, stuff like that, in case of somebody big,
Right.
that might have
Exactly.
like a literary organization. And that's how I got my first job teaching, because of my first book.
Mm. That is awesome.
They were like, oh, she a writer, and we need some writers over here. Can you come and talk to us about what you do? And
Wow.
at that time, I had no teaching experience,
Wow.
none. I had no
Oh,
teaching experience, but I had a lot of experience with kids. So I think that kind of was like a good way for me to get in. But
right.
I think that as writers, people just need to don't put themselves in a box, you
Right.
know, don't become a label. Like they can't, I'm not just one thing. You are not just one thing. We're monolithic. We're not monolithic as writers,
Right.
because once we start doing the same old thing, then that's what they're going to see. It's just like the actor that does the same project over and over again, and
Yeah.
nobody sees you as a diverse artists. We're diverse artists. That's what we are.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, it's all about having a balanced perspective. You don't want to be too big headed, but you don't want to sell yourself short either. You know, you want to be right there in the middle where you just want to show people that you're passionate about what you do, but at the same time exercising humility. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. You know, and
Yeah,
I believe that
absolutely.
you are one of the poets that exemplifies that balance. You keep it classy, you keep it dignified. You know who you are, and that presence that you have, it shows up in your writing. And and I can probably say that I've read your work. I believe I brought Musings of a Mocha Sistah Part 2. Just as an example, I've read your poetry from that book, and how you present yourself and how you carry yourself, it conveys through your poetry. I feel your passion, I feel your words, I feel your subject matter. So without a doubt, you have a presence and you're having an impact, and I'm very inspired and humbled to
Thank
be able to
you.
be connected to you, because you are one of the people that inspire me, in my own poetic walk. So I thank you for being an inspiration. Thank you for being yourself.
Thank you.
you know because that's important. We're all different, we all have something to offer. And if we're jumping on the bandwagon trying to sound like and act like and be like other people, then we're going to get lost in the sauce.
You're gonna get lost in sauce and nobody gonna look at you. They're gonna look at you
Exactly.
like, oh no, you just trying to be like everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. You need
And
to keep yourself in that.
I thank you for that. Just being myself is a blessing in a world that wants women women to look a certain way, or people of color to look a certain way,
Right.
whatever. I mean, I'm more than my poetry, but it comes in my poetry because I had to develop a good sense of myself after tragedies. Somebody asked me the other day, they was like, how you deal with XYZ and this happened and that? I don't become my tragedy, but trust and believe. The smile on the face is not the drama I've gone through, and dealing with like my childhood. My childhood was not glimmering glamour. Okay, it was a very difficult childhood, dealing with difficult things and having to grow up too soon. However, it defined and made me strong, and that's what I carry with me. And I also made a conscious decision to not allow trauma to define me.
Mhm.
I am not that moment. I am not that situation. Process the situation and keep on going. Keep your crown on. Keep your crown on. That's all I tried to do. And no wonder I ended up in 76 Crowns, which is a anthology of women talking about life issues. And I end up in a lot of different anthologies because I think people are drawn to who I am, and they're like, wow, how are you like this
Mhm.
upstairs? I don't know how the man does it. I don't know
Just
how he
does
does
it.
it,
He
but
just
he
does it.
does it, okay? I am
Mhm.
I am blessed in the fact that I learned early in life from my mother and from the women in my family how to deal with life and still move on despite, challenges. Because, in life, we're all going to have challenges. But the question is, are you going to let it change you to the point where you're not going to be able to be yourself? I am defining the love and the light that I want in my life. And I ain't gonna let nobody tell me what I gotta have. No governor, no whatever out
Right.
here. No, no, it's not happening because I know what I need to do for me. And also I feel like it drives me to do a lot more when I'm honest about myself and honest about what I can deal with. I mean, can't deal with everything, just deal with stuff in pieces until
Right.
you can deal with the big stuff, but deal with it in little itty bitty pieces and then move yourself on. But as writers, we deal with stuff all the time, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So is it correct? Am I correct in saying that you use your poetry as a source of healing for the most part? Do you feel you when you write? do you find healing in your words?
Oh, I find healing in the words that are given to me, because sometimes when I start a poem, sometimes I'm pulling out of the sky. Like I'm like, okay, I got 10 words. I don't know. I do some weird stuff with how I get my poems, but I ain't gonna tell all my
Right.
secrets. But I will pick some words, and then I'll start there and I'll start writing the poem. And I'm like, yes, this is a healing space. When I used to teach poetry, I would tell my students all the time, this is a art form for you to process things, to inspire yourself and others. And also it's a safe space to discuss difficult and hard things, but if you can present it with balance. You said something earlier, which I appreciate, is that you said, look, you keep it classy. You ain't got to sit up here say MF and all that to get a point across. I
Mhm.
listen to rap sometimes, and I like some rap, not all
Right.
rap, but some hip hop. I
Right.
like the hip hop that has a message. I like
Yeah.
Kendrick Lamar
Yeah.
or
Exactly.
or D Smoke,
Right.
or is it Smoke D Smoke, or somebody like that that has a message in their music, and they're presenting something that's not absolutely easy. We as poets can do the same thing. And back in the day, I was at all these open mics, and I started hearing the same people over and over again doing the same thing over and over again. I'm like, ain't nothing different. What are you
Right.
presenting? We have
Exactly.
to be ourselves. At the end of the day, you're not always going to be on that stage.
That's
Will your
true.
words still stand? So
That's true. That's true. And that's a very important and valid question. Will your words still stand? That's a very poignant question, and it's awesome that came about, because that's going to be the segue to our next segment. So as I share my screen, at this time, ladies and gentlemen, oops, sorry about that. All right. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask Pam to take the mic. Now, Pam, at this time, I'm giving you space to share up to 5 poems, any poems of your choosing, to give our audience an idea of who you are as a poet and an author, sharing your poetic musings, to give our audience an idea of your style and your perspectives regarding your poetry. So at this time, the floor is yours.
thank you for having me. So this first poem is it was a really rough year. I was working with youth, and it was like we lost a youth that year in this program, and they asked me at my job to write a poem about youth, and I was like, oh. So this poem is from 2009, and it's called Visionaries. Rewinding, a million blinks of light through visions unseen. You're meditating on life's receipts, beholden to your spirits. You push forward carrying untapped potentials and gifts given. Children, you are bright, bold, bountiful young spirits, gift laden with possibilities glittering in the open sky. Your mind's like powerful, like an unshuttered third eye, finding imagery in the image of what you script. It unfolds at your request and eyeing your vision of the future as you push forward. Blazing trails of life, shiny knowledge glows and knows because inside there's an inner strength that works off of raw talent that's brighter than blood diamonds lining your world's platform. You can touch the sky and your life with unbridled vitality as you push yourselves forward, carrying untapped orbs of education and bubbling talents bursting at the seams of your temple, making your way through seen and unseen challenges, storms, daggers that try to stop your path. You continue You better continue to laugh, love, and live as we all celebrate you at this table of joy. Children, your innovations, your creativity, you are unique, fierce, young stars, never afraid, never be afraid of shining, intellectually combing your way through the stairs that bring you forth to new vision. Your ignited trails for others to excel and empower and see your handiwork. Your awesome future awaits with bated breath. And the road might curve, but you won't default if there are challenges that come. Your oracles will find the way to continue the path, to glance to a journey that will emblazon the truth of your lives for all to see. That's that first piece. Ooh, goodbye, 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 goodbye. I see you there, hiding in the space away from me. We play peekaboo. I'm trying to see you tucked underneath the arch of the awning. I miss you. I miss you like chocolate on my tongue. I miss you. I miss your presence when you walked away. I cried. I sighed. I asked God for direction when you took yourself far, far away from me. All I could do was look through and glance and retrace your presence in my life. I know we had too much strife. We could not laugh anymore. We just fought too much. We stopped listening to each other. Baby, why we do that? I I had to pack bags and clothes, and you were far, far away. I never wanted this. So now I stand here, I'm trapped at the window. All I can do is be like a kid with my face pressed against the window, hoping on dreams deferred, wishing you could see my tears against this window pane. Knowing I live to see you breathe under me, with me, beside me, and that together we could have done anything. Goodbye, goodbye. We could have done amazing things, but we got too big for each other. And you took your feet, trampled all over my spirit, and said I was not worth it. And you know what? If that's the way you felt, then God bless you. Because I am worth more than this pain. And because I honor the princess lurking within my spirit, for I know that God has great plans for me. And I bid you adieu. May you find the peace you're seeking elsewhere on this earth. I have found the tranquility without you. And even though it hurt, I am healed, I am healed, I am healed, I am healed, I am healed. And I will keep saying this mantra until I am healed and I feel good because I am still blessed within. That's called goodbye. Any questions why I transition to my next piece?
Those were lit. That's all I know. Those poets were lit.
Thank
loving
you.
it, loving it.
Okay, you know, I was digging in my crave today, my poetry arsenal here in New York, because I have one in Illinois that has like tons and tons of old poems that I used to write and just pull them out. So back in 2019, I wrote a poem called Unjust Deaths. Do you know this poem still is valid? And I don't like that, y'all. This is called Unjust Deaths. We are oozing stitches inside our skin, which has bled too much. From the abuse, the knife of hate, the bullet of insecurity, the punch of racism, the swipes of unnamed pain. Coming forth into each generation of us, where is the humanity? We got stitched around bloody body parts. We've got brown and black bones falling to the earth. And the dust erases the names of many unjust deaths in the society. Question: why has it become so normalized to kill others when you're afraid of their skin? Kill others when you have an unprovoked fear? That directs you to cut down another person's life. Murder, 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 and toss around excuses of ridiculous lies are always told. I'm so sick of it. Then you execute the victims by using their past mistakes as an excuse of why you tossed them in the river of death. You say they were murderous while you were being murderous. You say they were vicious while you were being vicious. You say they blink too hard. But when it's your own race, you're gentle like a dove. Your voice is silent. Your voice is smooth. You slow down. You take your time. Your bullets, they stay in your guns. Your knife, it stays in your pockets. Your fear directs you to speak to them so softly, so sweetly, so nicely. But with us, you're taking out our life's rights. This unnamed pain in our communities must stop from the 60s to the 70s, from the 80s to the 90s, from the 2000s and beyond. I mean, I wrote this poem in 2019. Why is it still valid? Before MLK and after Trump, it's the same scarring pain. The lump of agony in a mother's bosom, the stain of societal affliction that continues to tear down African Americans, Latinos, and other people of color. When will we have? When can we have justice that will stand up for those cut down too soon in this life? I am waiting with bated breath on this chain of discomfort that bleeds us until we are no more. I am waiting for it to be beyond just us. All right, we got to turn this up into a beautiful. So I need a drink after that poem. Anyway,
That was powerful.
something for the beautiful women who, well, like my mom and other mothers who pour so much into their children and and the mothers of the earth. They need a little love too, and they need to know that we appreciate them. So this is a dedication piece. Mothers, born like tiny planet seeds deeply embedded in the earth, your vortex of life swirls around the universe. You are deep flowers that yawn into the atmosphere, spreading your warmth and sunshine even on low days. Mothers, the spear of light, chattering wisdom to fluidly blown seeds that grow in the atmosphere, grow in the universe, representing your DNA. We can see forever in your eyes. We can see forever in your eyes. Guided by your knowledge, strength in many abilities, mothers of the earth, whisper intellect under our wings, tuck stars under our scars, dash away dust that darken our tones. Pour infinite love into our lives like unending buckets. We can see forever in your eyes. We can see forever in your eyes. Snapshots of your talents. Cooking up something wonderful from the gifts you bestow upon us. Twirl truth from life lessons. As you serve up to us dedication in the way you carry yourselves as mothers, wives, daughters, entrepreneurs, daycare assistants, secretaries, principals, and so much more. Sometimes you're doing it all in one day. Mothers of the earth, sacrificing so much, allowing your lives to fade to black to see us shine in the atmosphere. Working your fingers to the bone, spreading yourself way too thin just to see us move forward. Mothers of the earth, we love the love that you love to share, educating us with each diamond lace word that touches the hem of our souls. You're the maker, you're the molder, you're the baker, you're the nurse, the doctor, and you heal us with your life medicine. You came. You came that we might live, and we cannot repay you for all the sacrifices that you've made, but we can salute. We can salute you sweetly with hymns of life, with love that never ends, with paying it forward to the next generation to bless, to love, to give, to pray forever, like you have done, mothers of the earth. Love you, mommy.
Excellent.
Last poem. This, and thank you guys for listening. I see you out there. I appreciate it a lot. So one of the things that I was learning as I was teaching poetry is looking at children looking at us. Kids pick up on everything. They looking at everything that we explain and talk, and even things that we don't even say. Nonverbal, y'all. They looking at us. We supposed to be the model. We supposed to be the example. So this poem is called Children Learn What They Live. If a child lives with violence, they may hurt, may learn to hurt, or live silently where it burns. If a child lives with pain, they may learn not to use their voice. If a child lives with love with others, they know how to share, they know how to care. If a child lives with empathy, to be compassionate, it's so, so good. If a child lives in a diverse world, they learn to be open with all kinds of people and embrace differences. Otherwise, if a child lives with judgments, they may learn to make rush judgments about a person, a situation, or a thing. If a child lives with fear, they learn to stay stuck in one place and may stay in a box of life, never venturing far from their comfort zones. If a child lives with abandonment, they may learn too soon to depend only on themselves and may limit others to help them through whatever they may be dealing with. Children may learn to fully delve into life, enjoying things without limiting themselves. It just really depends. If a child lives with myths, they can learn to judge others or take information that might not be true and make it true. If a child lives with pain, sometimes they can learn to rise above circumstances. If a child lives through hard times, they may learn to embrace when the good times roll ahead, embrace all that life has given to them joyfully. A child lives through so much and can and will be resilient. That's one thing we got to remember. They are shining in the light of love, the light of life. They glow through the spirit. Thank you guys for listening and checking me out tonight. I hope that you enjoyed some of the poetry that I shared. And I thank you, Noel, for this opportunity. It has been fun. Um, and I'm just so happy you guys are here and sharing my poetics with you tonight.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Pam. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the poetic musings of Pam Osbey, aka Mocha's sister. Thank you, Pam, for sharing those awesome poems. Excellent work, excellent work. Now, at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to move into the audience Q&A session part of the podcast. So at this time, if there's anyone in the audience that has a question or a comment for Pam, feel free to unmute yourself and share your question or comment. Well, I could actually kick it off because there is a question in particular that I forgot to ask you earlier, and it's this. How important is it for you to share your thoughts and experiences from the perspective of a woman, from the perspective of a Black woman, as a woman of faith, religion, if it applies to you? How important is it for you as a writer, as a poet, as an author, to make sure that you're presenting all sides of yourself, unfiltered, unashamed?
I think it's very important because for me, it frees me to be me and not to be fake. Because just because I'm a woman of faith don't mean I'm a pushover. Just because I'm a girl who grew up with her father don't mean I'm raised and want to kill every Black man. You know what I mean? So I like to show the diversity and the fullness of who I am and what I've been shaped into, and also to inspire others because I know a lot of people that have similar backgrounds. You know, things happened to me when I was a kid that shouldn't have happened to me. And I remember having a conversation with someone from high school, and she had the same experience. And she said, I did not know. She said, you don't talk about it. I said, I don't have to talk about it. But I will say this, you have to be your true self. If you try to make it something that, say, like your mom wants you to write or your church wants you to write, okay, you could write it, but write it in your authentic voice. Don't write it with the expectation that you need to hit what people want to hear. They're going to hear what you have to say if you present it in the way that is authentic to you, instead of you being fake. Remember, when I was starting to write poetry, I was too scared. I was thinking people was gonna like talk about me, church members. I'm like, oh, they're gonna talk about me.
Right.
I am a full person. Okay. Maybe that poem is 1/8 of me. Maybe that poem is another part of me. We're all full individuals, and we have to allow people to be their authentic selves. And that's all I want to inspire the people and say, you know what? Use your voice in the way that you feel best represents you, and no reason to be fake about it.
All right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Pam. Anyone else have any questions or comments for Pam before we close out with the night?
Hi Pam, this is Patricia. I just want to say that I really loved your poetry, and I also want to say I really admire, all of the novels that you said that you've written. It seemed might have been more than you can even count. As a person that aspires to write a novel one day, how do you stay inspired?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. Thank you for being here too. I appreciate that. So life is inspiring in itself, right? But as an inspiring writer, the reason why I was able to produce those books is I did the National Novel Writing Month. It's from November 1st to November, whatever the end of November is. And I did not anticipate doing 50,000 word 3 times, but I was able to do that. That is a great tool for you to consider, is to do the National Novel Writing. And if you Google National Novel Writing, you will find it on the internet, and you can sign up. And then when it's time to go live, it's challenging yourself to do those 2,300 words a day. Not easy, but it can get done. And the inspirations is the wind, is kids, is life, is allowing yourself to experience life, the ups and the downs of life. And also as a writer, writer, being curious keeps me inspired. No, sometimes I will think about a poem. I said, what if you write this as being the poem in a pocket? What would that experience be like for the poem? You know, it's like thinking outside the box is something that I do well. And I think I do well at it at jobs. I do well at it as an artist. Again, once you stay in the box, let yourself out the box. Let yourself go into a different situation and don't be scared of where it's going to lead you to. Sometimes you just got to really push yourself to do different things and not worry about what other people are going to say. Because I think as writers, we're so sensitive. We are super sensitive, and we're like always worried that, you know, maybe it's not going to be good enough for certain people. But you know what? There is somebody that's going to listen to your poem, your story. And as an aspiring writer, maybe you want to start with a short story form, um, you know, maybe a short story, 500 words, and see, and don't get caught up in what the story is. Like, do you have a character in your head? Start with that, start with the environment, and just write, and don't keep um second guessing yourself and trying to make it perfect, because write it as a draft. So that's how these books started off, as drafts. I didn't want it to be perfect until I finished it, and then I would go and get it edited. So that type of thing helps. And I wish you well on that. I think there is so much room out here for us to have more voices. So let your voice be heard, and there is an audience for everybody.
Awesome, awesome.
Thank you so much, Pam. Actually, I have written a couple of short stories, and they're in my book, and I've gotten some good feedback, and they've asked, some of them have said, I would love for you to expand them, but I'm so nervous. But like you said, I need to step out of that box and not worry so much and not have that fear. So
Yeah, if you got good feedback on it, go for it and pull it out. I mean, I have all kinds of stories that I didn't finish because I never got around. I'm like, I got to go back to some story ideas myself. But I think that's great that you started, because, in my first book, I did short stories and articles. And then, because I was testing out, is there a audience for this content? And I think that is good that you continue to explore it and see what you can get. If you can do it as a short form and pull it out, and I don't know how you work. Some people work with like outlines and stuff like that. I try not to use outlines. It makes me kind of stale. But if you want to use an outline to centrally, kind of draft your characters, that is good as well. So you can really figure out what chapter 1 through chapter whatever is going to be, and then write the stories from there.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome, awesome. Excellent question, Katsusia. Thank you for sharing that question, and all the best to you on those projects that you have and have planned to put together. Now, if there's no other questions or comments, before we close, Pam, can you share with our audience where you can be found on social media?
Social media, I'm on Instagram, Mocha.Sistah. Mocha.Sistah. Okay. MOCHA.SISTAH. You can find me on Facebook at Osbey Books or Pam Osbey. Just Google Osbey Books. I have an Osbey Books page there. I usually post live streams, poetry. I post my links. And I'm also on Anchor FM, as was mentioned previously. I have a podcast called Mocha's Jams. It's poetry and only poetry. And I also have Speak Truth to Life. I talk about everything on there. So everything from colorism to quality of life, different topics. And I think I'm in my first season on both channels right now. So if you want to drop by there, feel free to check me out there. And thank you guys again for hosting me. Thank you very much for Poets with Purpose, because I'm a poet with purpose. And this is the 10th episode, and I got 10 poetry books. So good timing on that, Noel.
Hey, excellent. That is lit. That is so lit. How awesome is that?
That's crazy. So yeah.
That's right on time, right on time. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Pam. Well, as we close out, I'm going to share one final screen to say to you, Pam, thank you so much for being my guest. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 10 of the P.W.P Sessions podcast. Many thanks to my guest, Pam Osbey, aka Mocha Sistah, for a great conversation and great poetry. Awesome. Be sure to follow her on social media and to keep up with her past projects, present projects, and future offerings. For those of you that wish to keep up with everything going on with Poets with Purpose and the P.W.P sessions, you can follow on Facebook through the Facebook group Poets with Purpose. We're also on Twitter @PoetsWPurpose, and there's a dedicated YouTube channel also by the same name, Poets with Purpose, where you can find not only past podcast episodes but also videos of past open mic events. Stay tuned for episode 11 featuring Teresa Harvard Johnson. That'll be on Saturday, June 12th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For more information about Poets with Purpose and the Poets with Purpose sessions, you can call me at 646-372-6230, or you can email me at poetswithpurpose@gmail.com. And lastly, all of my logos and flyers have been designed by the great team at Eclipse Graphics, and you can find them on Instagram @Eclipse Graphics New York. You can see samples of their work there and look them up if you need design work done for any of your projects. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I bring this podcast to a close. Thank you, Pam, so much for being my guest. It was awesome conversation. I want to give thanks to our audience. Thank you, Kat Socia, for those questions. Thank you all so much. This video will be posted in about an hour or so you can rewatch and recirculate on all of your social media channels. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Have a good night and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.